I was in the middle of weapons training when my phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from my neighbor. Then a text that made my blood freeze. Your wife's been shot. Ambulance just left. I dropped everything and ran. My wife Eliza. My 6-month-old daughter Harper. Shot. In front of our home. By the time I got there, the street was covered in blood, and I knew nothing would ever be the same again. Hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your city or country. My name is Adrian, and I'm an Army Ranger. 32 years old, been serving for 11 years. I've seen combat in 4 different countries, survived explosions, firefights, and situations most people only see in movies. But nothing prepared me for that Tuesday afternoon. I was at Fort Benning, Georgia, running a training exercise with my unit. We were doing live-fire drills, and I was focused on coaching the newer guys through their shooting patterns. My phone was in my locker like always during training hours. No distractions. That's the rule. When we finished around 3 in the afternoon, I headed to the locker room. My body was sore, covered in dirt and sweat. I grabbed my phone and saw the screen light up with notifications. 7 missed calls. 12 text messages. My stomach dropped before I even read anything. The first call was from Quinn, my next-door neighbor. She never called me. The second and third were from unknown numbers. Then I saw a voicemail from a number labeled St. Mary's Hospital. My hands started shaking. I opened Quinn's text first. Adrian, call me right now. Emergency. Then another text from an unknown number. This is Detective Grant with Columbus PD. Your wife has been involved in a shooting. She's being transported to St. Mary's Hospital. Please contact me immediately. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. Eliza, my wife. Shooting. I called Quinn back first. She picked up on the first ring. Adrian, thank heavens, she said, her voice cracking. I didn't know if you'd get my message. It's Eliza. She's been shot. It happened right in front of your house about 40 minutes ago. What? Shot? How? Is she okay? Where's Harper? Harper's safe. She was in Eliza's arms when it happened, but the baby's not hurt. Eliza took the bullets. 3 men, Adrian. They just rolled up in a black SUV and opened fire. I saw the whole thing from my window. My brain couldn't process it. Eliza. Shot. Harper in her arms. Which hospital? I asked, already running toward my truck. St. Mary's. They took her in an ambulance. It looked bad, Adrian. There was so much blood. I didn't respond. I just hung up and called the number Detective Grant left. He answered immediately. Mr. Adrian, this is Detective Grant. I'm sorry to inform you that your wife Eliza was shot multiple times outside your residence at approximately 2:15 p.m. today. She's currently in surgery at St. Mary's Hospital. Your daughter Harper is safe and with Child Protective Services temporarily until we can. I'm on my way, I said, cutting him off. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Sir, I need you to stay calm. We're going to need to speak with you when you arrive. This wasn't a random attack. We have reason to believe your wife was targeted. Targeted? That word hit me like a bullet. What do you mean targeted? I asked, my voice shaking with rage. We'll discuss everything when you arrive. Drive safely, Mr. Adrian. He hung up. I drove like a maniac. The 20-minute drive took me 12. I ran every red light, passed cars on the shoulder, didn't care about anything except getting to Eliza and Harper. My mind was racing with 1,000 questions. Who would target my wife? Why? What did they want? When I pulled into the hospital parking lot, I saw police cars everywhere. I parked crooked and ran inside. A uniformed officer stopped me at the entrance. I'm Adrian. My wife Eliza was shot. Where is she? The officer radioed someone, then nodded. Follow me, sir. He led me through a maze of hallways to the surgical wing. Outside the operating room, I saw Detective Grant. He was a tall man, maybe 50 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. Next to him stood a woman in a police uniform holding Harper in her arms. My daughter. My baby girl. I rushed over and took Harper from the officer. She was crying, her little face red and wet with tears. I held her against my chest, and felt my own tears start to fall. "She's okay," the officer said softly. "Not a scratch on her." I looked at Detective Grant. "Where's my wife? Is she alive?" "She's in surgery right now," he said. "She was shot 3 times. Once in the shoulder, once in the abdomen, and once in the lower back. The doctors are doing everything they can, but I have to be honest with you. It's critical." I felt my knees weaken. Harper was still crying in my arms, and I realized she must be terrified. She'd just watched her mother get shot. "Who did this?" I asked, my voice cold and steady now. Detective Grant pulled out a tablet and showed me a grainy security camera image. 3 men standing next to a black SUV. One of them was holding a gun. "Do you recognize any of these men?" he asked. I looked closely. The image wasn't clear, but something about the man in the middle looked familiar. Broad shoulders, tattoos running up his neck. Then I saw it, a scar running down the left side of his face. My blood turned to ice. "Victor," I whispered. Detective Grant's eyes widened. "You know him?" "Yeah, I know him." And in that moment, I realized this wasn't random. This wasn't a robbery or a mistake. Victor had come for me, and he'd shot my wife instead. Detective Grant led me into a private waiting room while a nurse took Harper to get checked out. My hands were still shaking, but my mind was crystal clear now. Victor. That name brought back memories I tried to bury. "Tell me everything you know about Victor," Grant said, sitting across from me with a notepad. I took a deep breath. 2 years ago, I was deployed in Colombia. My unit was working with the DEA on a drug trafficking operation. We raided a compound that was shipping cocaine back to the States. During the raid, we arrested 15 people. One of them was a guy named Dominic Torres. He was Victor's cousin. Grant wrote quickly. "Victor who?" "I need a full name." "Victor Reyes. He runs a gang operation here in Columbus. Small time compared to the cartels, but dangerous." Dominic was his right-hand man. When we arrested Dominic, we found emails on his laptop. He'd been communicating with Victor, using him as a distributor in Georgia. "So you're saying Victor knew you were the one who arrested his cousin?" "Not at first. The operation was classified. Our names weren't released publicly, but Dominic must have told him. Maybe Victor spent the last 2 years looking for me. I don't know how he found my address, but he did." Grant leaned back. "This changes everything. This isn't just a shooting. This is attempted murder with premeditation. If Victor targeted you specifically, that makes this federal." A doctor in blue scrubs pushed through the door. His face was serious but calm. "Are you Adrian?" "Eliza's husband." I stood up so fast my chair almost fell over. "Yes. How is she?" "Is she alive?" "She's alive. We've stabilized her, but the next 24 hours are critical. The bullet that hit her abdomen caused internal bleeding. We repaired the damage, but she lost a lot of blood. The bullet in her shoulder missed major arteries, so that's good news." "What about the one in her back?" I asked, afraid of the answer. The doctor hesitated. "That's the one I'm most concerned about. The bullet struck her lower spine. We won't know the full extent of the damage until the swelling goes down, but there's a possibility of permanent nerve damage." My heart sank. "What does that mean?" "It means she might not walk again, but it's too early to know for sure. Right now, she needs rest. She's sedated and in the ICU. You can see her in about an hour." I nodded, unable to speak. The doctor put a hand on my shoulder and left. Detective Grant stood up. "Adrian, I need you to come down to the station tomorrow and give a full statement. Everything you know about Victor, Dominic, the Columbia operation. We're going to build a case, and we're going to put these guys away." "I want to be part of this investigation," I said. "You're a victim's family member. You can't be directly involved. But I promise you, we'll get justice for Eliza." Justice. That word felt weak. I wanted more than justice. But I nodded anyway. Grant left, and I sat alone in that waiting room for the longest hour of my life. A nurse brought Harper back to me. She'd fallen asleep, exhausted from crying. I held her close and whispered promises I wasn't sure I could keep. When they finally let me into the ICU, I wasn't ready for what I saw. Eliza was surrounded by machines. tubes running into her arms, a breathing tube taped to her mouth. Her face was pale, almost gray. Bandages covered her shoulder and abdomen. I pulled a chair next to her bed and held her hand. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "This is my fault. He was looking for me, and you paid the price." Her hand was cold, lifeless. I squeezed it gently, hoping she could feel me. A nurse came in to check her vitals. "She can't hear you," she said softly. "Even under sedation, patients can often hear their loved ones. Keep talking to her." So I did. I told her about Harper, how brave she was, how much she looked like Eliza. I told her about the investigation, about Victor, about how I was going to make sure he never hurt anyone again. I talked until my voice gave out. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "You took my family. Now I took yours. We're even." My blood boiled. I showed the text to the officer stationed outside Eliza's room. He immediately called Detective Grant. Within 15 minutes, a tech team was tracing the number. It came back to a burner phone, but they pinpointed the cell tower it pinged off of. East Columbus. Victor's territory. Grant called me directly. "Adrian, that text is evidence. Don't respond. Don't engage. Let us handle this." "He's taunting me," I said through clenched teeth. "He thinks this is a game." "It's not a game. It's a confession. He just admitted to targeting your wife. That text alone could put him away. Let us do our job." I agreed, but inside, I was already planning. I knew Victor's world. I knew how guys like him operated. They thought they were untouchable because they controlled the streets. But they'd never dealt with someone like me. The next morning, Eliza was still unconscious. The doctors reduced her sedation to see if she'd wake up on her own. I sat by her bedside with Harper in my arms, waiting. Around 9 a.m., her fingers twitched. Then her eyes slowly opened. "Adrian." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm here. I'm right here." Tears streamed down my face. She looked around confused, then down at her body covered in bandages. "What happened?" "You were shot. But you're safe now. Harper's safe. You're both safe." Her eyes filled with tears. I remember. 3 men. A black car. I was walking from the mailbox. Harper was in my arms. Then I heard gunshots. I fell. I couldn't move. I thought I was going to die. "You didn't die. You're strong. You're going to get through this." She tried to move her legs, but couldn't. Panic flooded her face. "Adrian, I can't feel my legs." "Why can't I feel my legs?" And that's when I had to tell her the truth. The bullet in her spine. The nerve damage. The possibility that she might never walk again. She didn't cry. She just stared at the ceiling, silent and broken. 3 days passed. Eliza was moved from ICU to a private recovery room. The doctors confirmed what we feared most. The spinal damage was permanent. She'd need months of physical therapy, maybe years, but walking again was unlikely. She took the news better than I did. She just held Harper and said we'd figure it out together. But I couldn't let it go. Every time I looked at her in that hospital bed, rage burned through me. Detective Grant came by on the 4th day with another detective, a woman named Natalie Brooks. She was in her late 30s, sharp eyes, all business. She introduced herself as a federal prosecutor. "This case just got elevated," Natalie said, pulling up a chair. "The moment Victor sent that text message, it became a federal crime. Attempted murder, conspiracy, use of electronic communication to threaten. We're building a case, and we need your full cooperation." I nodded. "Whatever you need." Grant opened a folder and spread photos across the table. We identified the other 2 shooters from security footage. Kyle Martinez and Tristan Webb. Both have records. Both are part of Victor's crew. We've issued warrants for all 3, but they've gone underground. "They won't stay hidden long," I said. "Guys like Victor can't help themselves. They'll surface." Natalie leaned forward. "Adrian, I need you to walk me through your history with Victor. Start from the beginning." I took a breath and started from Colombia. It was March 2023. My Ranger unit was attached to a DEA task force tracking a cartel supply route. We got intel about a compound outside Bogota. It was a distribution hub, cocaine, weapons, cash. We raided it at dawn. How many people were arrested? Natalie asked, taking notes. 15 total. Most were low-level guys. But Dominic Torres was different. He had encrypted laptops, burner phones, financial records. The DEA found communications between him and someone in the States. That someone was Victor Reyes. Grant nodded. We pulled those DEA files yesterday. Dominic was funneling product through Victor's operation in Columbus. Victor's network was moving about $2 million worth of cocaine every quarter. Right? I continued. During the raid, Dominic resisted. He pulled a weapon, and I had to take him down. Non-lethal, but he got hurt pretty bad. Broken arm, fractured ribs. He was sent to a Colombian prison. Last I heard, he was serving 20 years. Natalie flipped through papers. Dominic Torres died in prison 8 months ago. Stabbed during a fight. My stomach dropped. I didn't know that. Victor blames you, Grant said. In his mind, you destroyed his family. You arrested Dominic, and Dominic died behind bars. So he decided to destroy yours. It all made sense now. Victor didn't just want revenge. He wanted me to feel the same pain he felt. Losing family. Watching someone you love suffer. How did he find my address? I asked. That information is protected. Military families are supposed to be safe. Natalie pulled out another document. We're still investigating that, but we found something interesting. Victor's crew includes a guy named Blake Harmon. He works as an IT contractor for a private security firm that does background checks for the military. We think Blake illegally accessed your file and sold your information to Victor. So this was planned, I said, my voice cold. Victor spent months, maybe longer, tracking me down. Exactly, Grant said. This wasn't a random act of violence. He wanted you to know it was him. That's why he sent the text. He wanted you to suffer. Eliza had been listening quietly from her hospital bed. Now she spoke up, her voice weak but steady. So what happens now? You arrest him and he goes to trial. If we can find him, Natalie said. Right now he's in the wind. But we have resources. FBI, ATF, local police. We'll find him. I stood up and walked to the window. Columbus looked peaceful from up here. Normal people living normal lives. They had no idea what kind of monsters walked among them. I can help, I said, turning back to them. I know how to track people. It's what I was trained to do. You're a victim's family member, Natalie said firmly. You can't be involved in the investigation. It compromises the case. Then use me as a consultant. I won't touch him. I won't go near him. But I can help you find him. Grant and Natalie exchanged looks. Finally, Grant spoke. Unofficially, if you happen to notice something or remember something that might help, you can share it with me. But you're not part of this investigation. Understood. I nodded, but we both knew what he was really saying. He was giving me permission to dig, as long as I didn't cross the line. That night, after Harper fell asleep in my arms and Eliza drifted off from pain medication, I made a phone call. It was to my old unit commander, a man named Grant Mason. Yes, same first name as the detective, but different guy. Mason had retired from the Rangers 2 years ago, but he still had connections everywhere. Adrian, Mason said when he picked up. Heard about what happened. I'm sorry, brother. I need your help, I said quietly. Victor Reyes. He's former cartel connected, running operations in Columbus. I need everything you can dig up. Associates, properties, habits, weaknesses. You going after him? I'm going to find him. What happens after that depends on him. Mason was quiet for a moment. I'll make some calls. Give me 24 hours. Thank you. Adrian, Mason said before hanging up. Don't do anything stupid. You've got a wife and daughter who need you. I know. But as I sat there in that dark hospital room, watching Eliza sleep in a bed she couldn't walk away from, I made a silent promise. Victor thought he'd won. He thought taking my wife's ability to walk was enough. But he was wrong. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Mason called me back the next evening. I was in the hospital cafeteria, drinking bad coffee while my sister Brooke sat with Eliza upstairs. "I've got what you need," Mason said. Victor Reyes operates out of 3 locations. A warehouse on East Industrial Boulevard, an auto repair shop that's a front for money laundering, and a house in the suburbs where he keeps his family. Wife and 2 kids. He keeps them separate from his operation. They don't know what he does. I wrote everything down on a napkin. What about Kyle and Tristan? Kyle Martinez lives in an apartment complex near downtown. Tristan web bounces between his mother's house and a girlfriend's place. But here's the interesting part. Victor's got a leak in his crew. My ears perked up. What kind of leak? One of his guys, Preston Clark, got arrested last week on an unrelated charge. Possession with intent to distribute. He's looking at 10 years. Word is he's willing to talk if the DA cuts him a deal. This was exactly what I needed. Did you tell Detective Grant about this? I figured you'd want to tell him yourself. I called Grant immediately. He answered on the second ring. "Adrian, what's up?" "Preston Clark. He's in county lockup right now. He's part of Victor's crew and he's looking to make a deal. You need to get to him before Victor does." There was silence, then typing. "How did you get this information? Does it matter?" "No, I guess it doesn't. I'll send someone over there first thing tomorrow morning." But tomorrow wasn't soon enough. That night, Preston Clark was attacked in his cell by another inmate. Stabbed twice in the ribs. He survived, but barely. The message was clear. Victor had eyes everywhere, even inside the jail. When I heard the news the next morning, I knew we were running out of time. Victor was cleaning house, eliminating anyone who might talk. If we didn't move fast, he'd disappear completely. Eliza was scheduled to start physical therapy that afternoon. I watched as 2 therapists helped her into a wheelchair. She tried to move her legs, straining with everything she had, but nothing happened. Tears ran down her face, but she didn't make a sound. "It's okay," one therapist said gently. "This is just the beginning. Recovery takes time." But I could see it in Eliza's eyes. She didn't believe she'd ever walk again. After therapy, I pushed her wheelchair back to the room. Harper was asleep in a portable crib the hospital provided. Eliza stared at our daughter for a long time. "I can't pick her up anymore," Eliza whispered. "When she cries, I can't just walk over and hold her. I have to wait for someone to bring her to me." "We'll figure it out," I said, kneeling beside her wheelchair. "You're still her mother. You're still everything to her." "Am I still everything to you?" she asked, looking at me with broken eyes. I took her face in my hands. "You're my whole world. Nothing changes that. Not this. Not anything." She leaned into me and finally cried. Real, heavy sobs that shook her whole body. I held her until she had nothing left. Later that night, Detective Grant called. "Preston's willing to talk. He's in protective custody now. We're meeting with him tomorrow morning. The prosecutor wants you there." "Why me?" "Because Preston says he has information about how Victor found your address. He wants to talk to you directly." The next morning, I met Grant and Natalie at the county jail. They brought me into a secure interview room. Preston was already sitting there, handcuffed to the table. He was younger than I expected, maybe 25, with tattoos covering his arms and neck. "You're the ranger," Preston said when I walked in. "That's right. Victor talked about you all the time. Said you ruined his life. Said he was going to make you pay." "How did he find me?" I asked, sitting across from him. Preston glanced at Natalie. "If I tell you, I want full immunity. No jail time." Natalie shook her head. "Best I can do is reduced sentence. You're facing 10 years. I can get it down to 3 if your information leads to Victor's arrest." Preston thought about it, then nodded. "Blake Harmon. He works for Secure Track Systems. They do background checks and security clearances for government employees, including military. Blake hacked the system and pulled your file. Address, family info, everything. He sold it to Victor for $20,000. My jaw clenched. Someone I trusted to protect my information had sold me out. "Where's Blake now?" Grant asked. "He ran. Soon as he heard about the shooting, he knew Victor would kill him to cover tracks. Last I heard, he was heading to Mexico." Natalie made notes. What about Victor? Where is he? I don't know exactly. He's got safe houses all over the city. But I know someone who does know, Kyle Martinez. Kyle's Victor's cousin. He's the only one Victor trusts completely. How do we find Kyle? I asked. Preston smiled. Kyle's got a daughter, 5 years old. She goes to Riverside Elementary. He picks her up every day at 3 o'clock. Never misses. Grant and Natalie exchanged looks. They had their target. 2 days later, they set up surveillance at Riverside Elementary. I wasn't officially part of the operation, but Grant let me watch from an unmarked car parked down the street. At exactly 3 o'clock, a gray sedan pulled up. Kyle Martinez stepped out. Police moved in fast. Kyle tried to run, but was tackled before he made it 10 feet. They found a loaded gun in his waistband and cocaine in his trunk. He was done. At the station, Kyle refused to talk at first. But when Natalie told him he was facing life in prison and would never see his daughter again, he broke. Victor's at the warehouse, Kyle said, defeated. East Industrial Boulevard. He's been hiding there for the past week. He's planning to leave the country tomorrow night. Grant immediately called for backup. FBI, SWAT, ATF, everyone mobilized. This was it. They were going to take Victor down. But I had a sinking feeling. Victor was smart. If Kyle knew where he was, there was a reason. Either Kyle was lying, or Victor wanted to be found. Either way, tomorrow night was going to change everything. The raid was set for midnight. I wasn't supposed to be there, but Grant knew I wouldn't stay away. He gave me a vest and told me to stay in the command vehicle, far from the action. You're a witness, not an operator, he warned. If you compromise this operation, Victor walks free on a technicality. I understood. But sitting in that van watching monitors while 20 armed agents surrounded the warehouse was torture. Every part of me wanted to be in there, facing Victor myself. The warehouse was dark except for a single light in a back office. Thermal imaging showed 3 heat signatures inside. Victor and 2 others, likely Tristan and someone else. All units in position, the SWAT commander said through the radio. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, execute. The front door exploded inward. Flashbangs lit up the warehouse like lightning. I watched the monitor as agents poured inside, weapons raised, shouting commands. FBI, get on the ground. Hands where we can see them. For a moment, everything was chaos. Then I heard gunfire. My heart stopped. On the thermal camera, I saw one of the heat signatures moving fast, shooting toward the back exit. Agents returned fire. Then silence. Subject down. We need medical. Grant grabbed his radio. Who's hit? 1 suspect down. Not Victor. It's Tristan Webb. Victor and the 3rd suspect escaped through a tunnel. Repeat, suspects escaped. I jumped out of the van before anyone could stop me and ran toward the warehouse. Grant yelled after me, but I didn't care. Inside, the place smelled like gunpowder and concrete dust. Tristan was on the ground, bleeding from his shoulder. Paramedics were already working on him. An agent pointed to a hole in the floor near the back office. Tunnel leads to the storm drain system. They had this planned. I looked down into the darkness. Victor had outsmarted us. He'd used Kyle to feed us false information, knowing we'd come. The warehouse was just a trap to buy him time. How long ago did they enter the tunnel? I asked. Maybe 2 minutes, the agent said. 2 minutes. They could be anywhere by now. The storm drains connected to dozens of exits across the city. Grant came up beside me, furious. He played us. Kyle told us exactly what Victor wanted us to know. Where does this tunnel lead? I asked. Could be anywhere. We're getting city maps now, but it'll take time to search every exit. Time we didn't have. I made a decision. I'm going in, I said, grabbing a flashlight from an agent's belt. Adrian, no. You're not trained for this. Let my team handle it. Your team doesn't know Victor like I do. I've tracked people through worse than a storm drain. I'm going. Grant grabbed my arm. If you go down there and something happens, this whole case falls apart. Victor's lawyers will say you acted as a vigilante and everything gets thrown out. Then don't tell anyone I was here. I dropped into the tunnel before he could stop me. The smell hit me immediately. Sewage, mold, stagnant water. My boots splashed through ankle-deep water as I moved forward, flashlight cutting through the darkness. The tunnel was narrow, concrete walls pressing in from both sides. I could hear voices ahead, echoing, distorted, but definitely voices. I turned off my flashlight and moved in darkness, using the sound as my guide. My ranger training kicked in, slow steps, controlled breathing, every sense alert. The voices got louder. I could make out words now. "We need to split up," someone said. Victor's voice. "You take the east exit. I'll go west. Meet at the safe house in 2 hours." "What about Kyle?" another voice asked. "Kyle's dead to me. He talked. That's why they knew where we were." "You think he told them about the safe house too?" "Doesn't matter. We're not going back there. We're leaving the country tonight. I've got a contact in Miami with a boat. We'll be in Cuba by morning." Cuba. That's where he was running. I heard footsteps moving in different directions. I had to make a choice, follow Victor or follow the other guy. Victor was the priority. I waited until the other footsteps faded, then moved forward again, tracking Victor's sounds. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber where 3 different drains connected. I could see dim light coming from one of them, an exit to the street above. Victor was climbing a ladder. I ran, splashing through the water. Victor heard me and looked down. Our eyes met. Recognition. Rage. He drew a gun. I dove behind a concrete pillar as shots rang out. The bullets ricocheted off the walls, deafening in the enclosed space. I had no weapon. I wasn't supposed to be here. This was exactly what Grant had warned me about. "Adrian," Victor shouted. "You cost me everything. My cousin is dead because of you. You shot my wife." I yelled back. "She'll never walk again because of you." "Good. Now you know what it feels like." More gunshots. I counted them. 5, 6, 7. Most handguns hold 15 rounds. He had to be running low. It didn't have to be like this. I shouted. "Dominic made his choices. You made yours. You could have walked away." "Walk away? Family is everything. You took mine, I took yours." 8, 9 shots. He was getting reckless, wasting bullets. I heard sirens above. The police had found the exit. Victor heard them too. "This isn't over," he screamed. "You'll never be safe. Your wife, your daughter, I'll come back for them." That threat was his mistake. It gave me the motivation I needed. I charged from behind the pillar, running straight at the ladder. Victor fired twice more. One bullet grazed my vest. The other missed completely. I grabbed his leg and pulled hard. He fell from the ladder, crashing into the water beside me. We fought in the darkness, fists and elbows in desperate survival. He was strong, but I was trained for this. Within seconds, I had him pinned, face down in the water. "Go ahead," he choked out. "Kill me. Prove you're no different than me." I wanted to. Every part of me wanted to hold him under until he stopped moving. But I thought about Eliza, about Harper, about the life I wanted them to have. I pulled him up and slammed his face against the concrete wall. He went limp. Flashlights appeared above. "Federal agents. Identify yourself." "Adrian Mercer." "I've got Victor Reyes. He's unconscious." Agents rappelled down into the chamber. They pulled Victor up and cuffed him. Grant was with them, looking at me with a mixture of anger and respect. "You're an idiot," he said. "Yeah, but we got him." Victor was alive. He'd face trial, and I'd be there to watch him pay for everything he'd done. Victor was taken to federal custody. No bail. No visitors except his lawyer. Blake Harmon, the IT contractor who sold my information, was arrested at the Mexican border trying to cross with a fake passport. Tristan survived his gunshot wound and was charged as an accomplice. The third man who escaped the tunnel was caught 2 days later hiding at his girlfriend's apartment. The case was building. Solid. Airtight. But something felt wrong. I was at the hospital with Eliza when Detective Grant called. "We need to talk. Can you come to the station?" "What's going on?" "Just come. It's important." I kissed Eliza goodbye and drove to the precinct. Grant met me in an interrogation room with Natalie and another man I didn't recognize. He was older, wearing an expensive suit, and had the look of someone who'd seen too much. Adrian, this is Agent Felix Ortiz with the DEA, Grant said. He worked the Colombia operation with your unit back in 2023. Felix shook my hand. Good to meet you, Sergeant Mercer. Though I wish it was under better circumstances. What's this about? I asked, sitting down. Felix opened a folder and slid a photo across the table. It was Dominic Torres, Victor's cousin. But he wasn't in a prison cell. He was standing on a beach, smiling, holding a drink. This photo was taken 6 weeks ago in Venezuela, Felix said. My blood went cold. That's impossible. Natalie told me Dominic died in prison 8 months ago. That's what we thought too, Felix said. But it was a lie. Dominic faked his death with help from a corrupt prison official. He's been living in Venezuela under a new identity. I couldn't process it. So Victor's entire motivation for revenge was based on a lie. Not exactly, Natalie said. Victor didn't know Dominic was alive. Dominic cut all contact with his family when he faked his death. He wanted a fresh start. But here's where it gets complicated. She pulled out another document. 2 weeks before the shooting, Dominic tried to contact Victor. He sent an encrypted message through a middleman saying he was alive and wanted to reconnect. But the message never reached Victor. It was intercepted. By who? I asked. Blake Harmon, Grant said. The same guy who sold your address to Victor. Blake intercepted the message and never told Victor. He kept Dominic's survival a secret. Why would he do that? Felix leaned forward. Money. Blake was playing both sides. He sold your information to Victor for $20,000. Then he contacted Dominic and told him that Victor was planning revenge on you. Blake offered to warn you for another $20,000 from Dominic. But Dominic refused to pay. So Blake let the shooting happen. I felt sick. Blake knew the shooting was going to happen and did nothing? Worse, Natalie said. Blake gave Victor your address specifically on the day he knew Eliza would be home alone. He timed it. He wanted the shooting to happen so he could leverage it later. Leverage how? Blake planned to tell Dominic about the shooting after it happened, then offer to help reunite Dominic with Victor for a price. He was setting up his own payday using both families as pawns. I stood up, pacing. So Dominic is alive. Victor thinks he's dead. And Blake orchestrated everything just to make money off our suffering. That's correct, Felix said. And now we have a problem. If Victor finds out Dominic is alive, his entire motivation changes. His defense attorney could argue diminished capacity, that he was driven by grief and manipulation. Are you saying Victor might not go to prison? I asked, my voice rising. No, Natalie said firmly. He's going to prison. But his sentence might be reduced. Instead of life without parole, he could get 25 years with possibility of parole. I slammed my fist on the table. He shot my wife. She'll never walk again. And you're telling me he might get out in 25 years. We're telling you the truth, Grant said calmly. The defense will use this information. We can't hide it. What about Blake? What happens to him? Blake is facing conspiracy charges, accessory to attempted murder, fraud, and about a dozen other felonies, Natalie said. He'll get 30 years minimum. That wasn't enough. None of it was enough. Does Victor know yet? I asked. About Dominic being alive? No, Felix said. And we're not telling him until after the trial. If he finds out now, it complicates everything. I left the station and drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. Eventually, I ended up at a park near our house. The same park where Eliza used to take Harper for walks. I sat on a bench and tried to make sense of everything. Victor shot Eliza because he thought I killed his family. But I didn't. Dominic was alive. And Blake had manipulated everyone for money. The whole thing was built on lies. My phone rang. It was Eliza. Where are you? She asked. You've been gone for hours. Just driving. Thinking. About what? I couldn't tell her. Not yet. Nothing important. I'll be home soon. Adrian, talk to me. I can hear it in your voice. Something's wrong. I broke. I told her everything. About Dominic being alive. about Blake's manipulation, about how Victor's sentence might be reduced. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that shocked me. Maybe that's fair. Fair? Eliza, he shot you. I know. But he thought his cousin was dead because of you. He was operating on false information. That doesn't excuse what he did, but it explains it. People do terrible things when they're in pain. You're defending him? No. I'm saying I understand him. Grief makes people do things they'd never normally do. You've been hunting him with the same energy he used to hunt us. You're not that different. Her words hit me like a bullet. She was right. I'd been so focused on revenge that I'd become exactly what I hated. So what do? I asked. You let the system handle it. You come home. You be a husband and a father. You let go of the hate before it destroys you. I wanted to argue, but I couldn't, because she was right. I drove back to the hospital. When I walked into her room, Harper was awake, playing with a stuffed toy. Eliza was in her wheelchair, watching our daughter with tired but loving eyes. I'm sorry, I said. For what? For letting this consume me. For not being here enough. She wheeled over and took my hand. You're here now? That's what matters. But even as I held her hand, I knew this wasn't over. The trial was coming. And when Victor found out the truth about Dominic, everything would explode. 3 months passed. Eliza was discharged from the hospital, and we converted our home to accommodate her wheelchair. Ramps, grab bars, a modified bathroom. Our bedroom became hers alone because she couldn't climb stairs. I slept on the couch downstairs so I could hear Harper when she cried at night. Physical therapy became Eliza's full-time job. 4 days a week, 3 hours a day. The therapists were optimistic, but realistic. She might regain some sensation, maybe even limited movement. But walking was still unlikely. Harper turned 1 year old. She took her first steps while Eliza watched from her wheelchair. I saw the pain in my wife's eyes, the joy mixed with grief. She'd never walk alongside our daughter, never chase her through the yard, never dance at her wedding. But Eliza never complained. She adapted. She learned. She became stronger in ways I couldn't imagine. The trial was set to begin in October. Federal court, Judge Mason presiding. Different Mason than my old commander, but just as no-nonsense. The media picked up the story. Army Ranger's wife shot by gang leaders seeking revenge. It became national news. Natalie called me the week before trial. We need to prep you for testimony. You're our key witness. We met at her office. She walked me through what to expect. The defense attorney would try to paint Victor as a grieving man driven to madness. They'd bring up the Columbia operation, question my actions during the raid. They'd try to make me look like the villain. Can you handle that? Natalie asked. I can handle anything if it puts Victor away. Good. Because there's one more thing. Victor's attorney filed a motion to allow evidence about Dominic being alive. The judge approved it. My stomach dropped. So the jury will know? Yes. They'll know Victor was operating under false information. But we're going to argue that it doesn't matter. He still planned and executed an attack on an innocent woman. His motivation doesn't change his crime. The trial started on a cold Monday morning. The courthouse was packed. Media cameras lined the steps. I wore my army dress uniform. Natalie said it would help the jury see me as a hero, not a vigilante. Eliza insisted on attending. We arranged for a front row seat with space for her wheelchair. Harper stayed with my sister Brooke. Victor was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit and chains. He looked thinner, older. When his eyes met mine, there was no anger, just emptiness. The prosecution's opening statement was powerful. Natalie laid out the facts, the shooting, the planning, the text message confession. She showed photos of Eliza's injuries, medical reports about her paralysis. Several jurors looked away. Then the defense attorney stood up. His name was Julian Cross, and he was known for getting guilty people reduced sentences. He was smooth, confident, and dangerous. Ladies and gentlemen, Julian began. This is not a case about guilt or innocence. My client doesn't deny shooting Eliza Mercer. What we're here to determine is why, because the why matters. He clicked a remote and a photo of Dominic Torres appeared on a screen. Young, smiling, alive. Dominic Torres. Victor Reyes's cousin. His best friend. Practically his brother. Dominic was arrested by Sergeant Adrian Mercer during a military operation in Colombia. Dominic was sentenced to 20 years in a foreign prison. And 8 months before the shooting, Dominic died. Or so Victor believed. Julian paused for effect. But Dominic didn't die. He faked his death and disappeared. Victor didn't know this. He thought his cousin was dead because of Adrian Mercer. He thought the man who raised him, protected him, loved him was gone forever. And in his grief, he made a terrible decision. Several jurors nodded. I felt my jaw clench. This is a tragedy on both sides, Julian continued. Eliza Mercer is a victim. But so is Victor Reyes. He was manipulated, lied to, and driven to violence by false information. That doesn't excuse what he did, but it explains it. An explanation matters when we're talking about justice. He sat down. The courtroom was silent. The first witness was Quinn, my neighbor. She testified about seeing the shooting, about the black SUV, about the 3 men. She described Eliza falling, Harper crying, the blood on the sidewalk. Then it was the forensic expert, Dr. Ian Porter. He explained the bullet trajectories, the weapons used, the evidence collected. Everything pointed to premeditated attempted murder. The medical expert came next. Dr. Helena Cross, no relation to the defense attorney. She testified about Eliza's injuries, the surgery, the permanent spinal damage. She brought scans and charts. The jury looked horrified. On day 3, I was called to the stand. Natalie walked me through the Columbia operation. How we raided the compound. How Dominic resisted and was injured. How I followed protocol and rules of engagement. Did you intend to harm Dominic Torres? Natalie asked. No. I intended to arrest him. He pulled a weapon. I responded appropriately. Did you ever have contact with Victor Reyes before the shooting? No. I'd never met him. Never spoken to him. I didn't even know he existed until after my wife was shot. Natalie nodded. No further questions. Then Julian Cross stood up. This was the moment I'd been dreading. Sergeant Mercer, he began, his tone friendly. You're a trained killer, correct? I'm a soldier trained in combat. Combat, which involves killing, yes? When necessary. How many people have you killed in your military career? Natalie objected. Relevance, Your Honor. I'm establishing a pattern of behavior, Julian said. Judge Mason thought about it. I'll allow it. Answer the question, Sergeant. I looked at the jury. I don't keep count. That's not how we operate. Estimate then. 10, 20, 50. I've been in combat situations where lethal force was necessary. I don't know exact numbers. Julian smiled. You see, ladies and gentlemen, Sergeant Mercer deals in violence professionally. It's his job. And when his job brought consequences to Victor Reyes's family, he didn't think twice about it. Because to him, Dominic Torres was just another target. That's not true, I said, my voice steady. Dominic was arrested legally. He was treated humanely. He was given due process. But you're the reason he ended up in that Colombian prison, correct? I'm the reason he faced justice for drug trafficking. Julian changed tactics. After your wife was shot, you participated in the manhunt for Victor Reyes, didn't you? I provided information to law enforcement. You went into the storm drain tunnel alone. You fought Victor Reyes. You could have killed him, but you chose not to. What? This was a trap. Whatever I said would be used against me. Because killing him would have made me no different than him. Julian nodded slowly. So you believe Victor is a killer? He shot my wife. But he didn't kill her. Just like you didn't kill Dominic. Yet you call him a killer. Isn't that hypocritical? Objection. Natalie stood. Argumentative. Sustained, Judge Mason said. Move on, Mr. Cross. But the damage was done. The jury had heard the question. Julian smiled. No further questions. As I stepped down from the witness stand, I caught Victor's eyes again. This time, I saw something different. Regret. The trial continued for 2 more weeks. Blake Harmon took the stand in exchange for a reduced sentence. He confessed everything, selling my address, intercepting Dominic's message, manipulating both families for profit. The jury looked disgusted. Kyle Martinez testified next. He admitted to being at the shooting, driving the getaway vehicle. He said Victor had been obsessed with revenge for months, planning every detail. But Kyle also said something unexpected. Victor didn't want to kill anyone, Kyle testified. He just wanted to scare Adrian, make him feel the fear. But when we got there and saw Eliza with the baby, Victor lost it. He said, "This is what Adrian took from me," and he fired. I think he meant to miss. But he didn't. The courtroom erupted. Judge Mason slammed his gavel, demanding order. Natalie stood. "So you're saying Victor Reyes's intention was not to murder?" "I'm saying he wasn't thinking clearly. He was high on grief. And cocaine. He'd been using heavy that week." This was new information. The toxicology report from Victor's arrest showed traces of cocaine in his system, but we didn't know he'd been using regularly. The defense immediately seized on this. Julian Cross called an expert psychiatrist, Dr. Lila Hayes, who testified that prolonged drug use combined with intense grief could cause temporary psychosis. In Mr. Reyes's mental state, Dr. Hayes explained, he likely wasn't capable of forming clear intent. He was operating on emotion, trauma, and chemical impairment. This doesn't excuse his actions, but it does explain the lack of control. The prosecution countered with their own expert, but the damage was done. The jury now had reasonable doubt about premeditation. On the final day of testimony, something happened that nobody expected. Victor Reyes asked to take the stand. Julian Cross tried to talk him out of it, but Victor insisted. He was sworn in and sat in the witness chair, looking directly at me. "I want to apologize," Victor said, his voice breaking. "To Eliza Mercer. To Harper. To Adrian. What I did was unforgivable. I thought my cousin was dead. I thought Adrian took him from me. But even if that was true, it didn't give me the right to hurt innocent people." The courtroom was silent. Even Natalie looked surprised. "I've had 3 months in jail to think about what I did," Victor continued. "Every night, I see Eliza falling. I see that baby crying. And I know I did that. Me. Not Adrian. Not Dominic. Me. I made the choice to pick up that gun. I made the choice to pull the trigger." Julian tried to interrupt, but Victor kept talking. "I deserve whatever sentence this court gives me. But before that happens, I need to say one more thing." Victor looked at the jury. 2 days ago, I received a letter. It was from my cousin Dominic." The courtroom exploded with whispers. Judge Mason banged his gavel. "Dominic is alive," Victor said, tears streaming down his face. "He's been alive this whole time. He faked his death and never told me. For 2 years, I mourned him. I blamed Adrian. I destroyed a family because of a lie." He pulled an envelope from his pocket. This letter arrived at the jail. "Dominic says he heard about the trial and wanted me to know the truth. He said he's sorry for letting me believe he was dead. He said he wanted a fresh start and didn't think about how it would affect me." Julian grabbed the letter and examined it. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit this as evidence." Natalie objected. "This is highly irregular. We haven't authenticated this letter. It could be fabricated." Judge Mason called both attorneys to the bench. They spoke in hushed tones for several minutes. Finally, the judge announced, "We'll take a recess while the letter is examined by forensic experts." Court adjourned until tomorrow morning. That night, I couldn't sleep. If the letter was real, it changed everything. Victor's entire motivation was exposed as a lie, not just to us, but to him. The next morning, Agent Felix Ortiz confirmed the letter was authentic. It had been sent from Venezuela, postmarked 3 weeks earlier. Dominic's fingerprints were on the paper. It was real. Victor was brought back to the stand. This time, he looked broken. "How do you feel now that you know the truth?" Natalie asked during cross-examination. "Empty," Victor said. "Everything I did was for nothing. Eliza is in a wheelchair for nothing. Harper lost her mother's ability to walk for nothing. And it's all my fault." "Did you plan to kill Eliza Mercer?" Victor paused. No, I planned to hurt Adrian. I wanted him to feel pain like I felt pain. When I saw Eliza, I thought about how Adrian took Dominic from me, and I wanted to take something from him. But I didn't think about her, about who she was, about her life, her dreams, her daughter. I just saw a target, and that makes me a monster. The courtroom was silent except for someone crying. I realized it was Eliza. No further questions, Natalie said quietly. Closing arguments happened that afternoon. Julian argued for manslaughter instead of attempted murder. He said Victor was impaired, manipulated, and operating under false information. Natalie argued that none of that mattered. Victor made a choice. He picked up a gun. He aimed at an innocent woman holding a baby, and he pulled the trigger 3 times. That was attempted murder, regardless of his mental state. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood. We find the defendant, Victor Reyes, guilty of attempted murder in the 2nd degree, assault with a deadly weapon, and conspiracy to commit violence. Not 1st-degree murder. 2nd degree, which meant Victor believed he had some justification, even if it was wrong. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. But as Victor was led away in handcuffs, he looked at me one more time and mouthed 2 words. I'm sorry. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I believed him. But sorry doesn't give Eliza her legs back. Sorry doesn't erase Harper's trauma. Sorry doesn't heal the damage. Still, it was something. The 2 weeks between the verdict and sentencing felt longer than the entire trial. Eliza and I tried to return to normal life, but normal didn't exist anymore. Every time I helped her transfer from wheelchair to bed, every time Harper crawled across the floor and Eliza couldn't chase her, I was reminded of what Victor had taken. But something was changing in Eliza. She wasn't angry anymore. She was focused, determined. She started volunteering at a disability advocacy group, speaking to other wheelchair users about adaptation and hope. She became a voice for people who felt invisible. One afternoon, I was in the garage organizing tools when the doorbell rang. Harper was napping, and Eliza was on a video call with her advocacy group. I answered the door. A young man stood there, maybe 25, with nervous eyes and shaking hands. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. Can I help you? I asked. Are you Adrian Mercer? Who's asking? My name is Quentin Reyes. I'm Victor's younger brother. My hand instinctively moved toward where I'd normally carry a sidearm. But I wasn't armed. And this kid looked terrified, not dangerous. What do you want? I asked, my voice cold. To apologize. And to explain. Can I have 5 minutes? Please. Against my better judgment, I let him in. We sat in the living room. Eliza wheeled in from the office, her face cautious but curious. This is Victor's brother, I told her. Quentin looked at Eliza, and his eyes filled with tears. Mrs. Mercer, I am so sorry for what my brother did to you. I had no idea he was planning anything. I haven't spoken to Victor in 3 years. We had a falling out when I refused to join his operation. Why are you here? Eliza asked, her voice steady. Quentin pulled an envelope from his jacket. I own a legitimate business. Construction and real estate development. When I heard about the trial, about what Victor did, I was horrified. I wanted to help somehow, but I didn't know how. Then I thought about your daughter. He handed the envelope to Eliza. She opened it. Inside was a certified check for $50,000. What is this? Eliza asked. A trust fund. For Harper's education. I know it doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't give you your legs back. But I wanted to do something. Anything. To show that not everyone in the Reyes family is a monster. I stood up. We don't want your money. Adrian, Eliza said quietly. Let him finish. Quentin nodded gratefully. There's more. I've been in contact with Dominic. He's devastated about what happened. He had no idea Victor would react the way he did. Dominic wants to help too. He's willing to testify at the sentencing hearing about how he faked his death, about how it was his fault Victor believed he was dead. Why would Dominic do that? I asked. It would expose him. He could be arrested. He's already turned himself into the DEA. He's negotiating a deal. He wants to make things right, even if it means going back to prison. This was too much. I couldn't process it. The family that destroyed us was now trying to help us. Eliza looked at the check, then at Quentin. Why would you do this? We're strangers. Your brother is the one who hurt us, not you. Because family is complicated, Quentin said. Victor is my brother, and I love him. But what he did was wrong. And I believe in accountability. Part of my accountability is acknowledging the damage my family caused and trying to repair it, even if I can't repair it completely. He stood to leave. You don't have to accept the money. If you don't want it, I'll donate it to a charity in Harper's name. But I wanted you to know that I see you. I see your pain. And I'm sorry. After he left, Eliza and I sat in silence for a long time. What do you think? I finally asked. I think hurt people, Eliza said. And healed people heal people. Quentin is trying to heal. Maybe we should let him. You want to accept the money? I want Harper to have opportunities. If this money can give her that, then yes. It doesn't mean we forgive Victor. It means we're choosing to accept help from someone who genuinely wants to give it. 2 days before the sentencing hearing, Dominic Torres arrived at the federal courthouse voluntarily. He was arrested immediately and placed in custody, but his lawyer arranged for him to testify at Victor's sentencing. The courtroom was packed again. Media, spectators, families of both sides. Victor was brought in, and when he saw Dominic sitting in the gallery, he broke down. The two cousins locked eyes, and I saw decades of love and loss pass between them. Judge Mason called the court to order. Before I deliver the sentence, I'm allowing Mr. Dominic Torres to make a statement. Mr. Torres, you may proceed. Dominic stood. He looked older than his photos, worn down by guilt. Your Honor, my name is Dominic Torres, and I'm the reason we're all here. When I faked my death, I didn't think about the consequences. I was selfish. I wanted freedom, a new life. I didn't consider how my family would react, especially Victor. He raised me after our parents died. He was more than a cousin. He was a father to me. Dominic's voice cracked. When I heard about what Victor did, I was destroyed. This woman, Eliza Mercer, is paralyzed because I was a coward. Because I ran away and let everyone believe I was dead. Victor's actions are his own, but I carry responsibility too. I want the court to know that if anyone should be punished, it's me. Judge Mason listened carefully. Mr. Torres, you'll face your own charges in due time. Today is about Victor Reyes. The judge turned to Victor. Mr. Reyes, you've been found guilty of attempted murder in the 2nd degree. The sentencing guidelines suggest 15 to 25 years. However, given the circumstances, the manipulation by Blake Harmon, the false information about your cousin's death, your genuine remorse, I'm sentencing you to 20 years with possibility of parole after 15. The courtroom reacted with mixed emotions. Some thought it was too lenient. Others thought it was fair. However, Judge Mason continued, I'm adding a condition. You will participate in a restorative justice program. If Mrs. Mercer agrees, you will communicate with her through mediated sessions to understand the full impact of your actions. If she declines, you'll participate in victim impact programs with other families. Everyone looked at Eliza. She sat quietly, thinking. Finally, she spoke. I'll do it. Not for him. For me. I need him to understand what he took from me. From us. Victor nodded, tears streaming down his face. Thank you. As Victor was led away, Quentin approached us in the hallway. Thank you for giving my brother a chance to face what he did, Quentin said. And thank you for accepting the trust fund. Harper deserves a future not defined by this tragedy. Eliza shook his hand. We all do. The restorative justice program started 3 weeks after sentencing. It was held in a secure room at the federal prison with a trained mediator named Dr. Morgan Reed. Eliza insisted on doing it alone at first. I waited outside with Harper, anxious and protective. The first session lasted 2 hours. When Eliza came out, her eyes were red but calm. How did it go? I asked. He listened. Really listened. I told him about the moment I felt the bullets hit me. About holding Harper, and thinking we were both going to die. About waking up and realizing I'd never walk again. About watching our daughter take her first steps from a wheelchair. What did he say? He cried. And he told me about finding Dominic's body when he was just a kid after their parents died in a car accident. About raising Dominic alone. About feeling like everyone he loved was taken from him. It doesn't excuse what he did, but I understand the pain that drove him. Over the next 3 months, Eliza met with Victor 4 more times. Each session, she shared more of her truth. And each time, Victor absorbed it, owned it, carried it. On their final session, Victor asked if I would join. I didn't want to, but Eliza asked me to come. We sat across from Victor in that sterile room. He looked different now, humbled, older, broken in a way that seemed permanent. "Adrian," he said, his voice quiet. "I know you'll never forgive me. I wouldn't forgive me either. But I need you to know something. Every day for the rest of my life, I'm going to carry what I did. And when I get out, if I get out, I'm going to spend whatever time I have left making sure other people don't make the same mistakes I did." "How?" I asked. "I'm working with prison counselors, talking to young inmates about grief, anger, and how violence destroys everything. Your wife has inspired me to turn my pain into purpose instead of revenge." I looked at Eliza. She nodded. "I don't forgive you," I said honestly. "But I don't hate you anymore either. And maybe that's enough." Victor nodded, understanding. "That's more than I deserve." As we left the prison that day, I felt something lift. Not completely, but enough. Life moved forward. Harper turned 2 years old and started talking in full sentences. Her favorite person was Eliza. She'd climb into her mom's wheelchair and they'd roll around the house together, laughing. Eliza's advocacy work grew. She was invited to speak at a national disability rights conference. She told our story, not as victims, but as survivors who chose healing over hatred. Quentin kept his promise. The trust fund he started grew with additional contributions from his business. By Harper's 3rd birthday, it had reached $200,000. Enough for college and more. But the biggest surprise came 18 months after the trial. Dominic Torres, after serving his time in Colombia and negotiating a deal with the DEA, was released under strict probation. He moved back to the United States and reached out through Quentin. "I know you don't want to see me," Dominic's letter said, "but I want to work with your wife's organization. I want to help families affected by violence find resources and support. I can't undo what happened, but I can dedicate my life to preventing it from happening to others." Eliza agreed to meet him. I went with her, protective as always. Dominic was nothing like I expected. He was quiet, genuine, and carried visible shame. He didn't make excuses. He simply said, "I'm sorry, and I want to help." Within 6 months, Dominic became one of the organization's most effective volunteers. He worked with families who'd lost loved ones to gang violence, helping them navigate grief without seeking revenge. One evening, 2 years after the shooting, I found Eliza on our back porch watching the sunset. Harper was playing in the yard with our new puppy, a golden retriever named Hope. "What are you thinking about?" I asked, sitting beside her. "About how strange life is," she said. 2 years ago, I was shot by a man who thought he'd lost everything. Now that man's family is helping us build something beautiful. His cousin works alongside me. His brother made sure our daughter has a future. Do you regret the restorative justice program?" I asked. "Never. It freed me. Holding on to anger would have put me in a different kind of prison. This way, I'm free even if my legs aren't." I took her hand. "You're the strongest person I know." "We're strong together," she corrected. 3 years after the sentencing, Victor's first parole hearing was scheduled. The board asked if we wanted to make a statement. Eliza wrote a letter. "I do not believe Victor Reyes should be released early," she wrote. "He needs to serve his time and face the consequences of his actions. But I also believe he's genuinely changed. When his time is complete, I hope he continues the work he started. Because the world needs fewer people seeking revenge and more people seeking healing." The parole was denied. Victor would serve his full sentence. But he wrote back to Eliza, thanking her for seeing his humanity even when he denied hers. Now, as I write this, 5 years have passed since that terrible day. Harper is 6 years old, smart and fearless. She doesn't remember the shooting, but she knows her mom is in a wheelchair. To her, it's just normal. Eliza runs a national nonprofit called Voices of Resilience that helps families affected by violence. She's published a book about forgiveness and healing. She travels the country speaking to audiences about choosing hope over hatred. I retired from the Army and became a consultant for veteran support programs. I help soldiers transitioning back to civilian life, especially those dealing with trauma and anger. Quentin's construction business is thriving, and he continues supporting our organization. Dominic works full-time as our community outreach coordinator. The man whose death sparked a tragedy is now saving lives. And Victor? He's still in federal prison, but he's a changed man. He leads anger management programs and writes letters to at-risk youth warning them about the cost of revenge. Our story didn't have a Hollywood ending. Eliza still can't walk. The scars, physical and emotional, remain. But we learned something powerful. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing what you build with the broken pieces. We chose to build hope, love, purpose. And that's the most powerful revenge against evil, refusing to let it define you.